You're listening to Owning the Buy Box, an IP Secure podcast. This is the podcast for agencies, brands, and aggregators who want to master Amazon, push out unauthorized competition, and take their business to the next level. You're about to hear a conversation that'll help you maximize your growth on Amazon by owning the Buy Box. Let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Owning the Buy Box. I'm your host, Dave Cooper. I'm also the founder and CEO of IP Secure. On the show, we oftentimes have brands, agencies, people who are selling online for a living. And the internet and e-commerce has clearly become an extension of our brand and a frankly critical component of the experience that your customers have with you. And so we love to have really smart people on the show who have different perspectives on this. And I'm really excited for today's guest. She's a two-time author, highly accomplished and experienced chief marketing officer. Today, she's with Twisted X Global Brands. That's Trisha Mahoney. Trisha, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Dave, thanks so much for having me. And gosh, to be included in this group, this is just super cool. I love it.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. We're lucky to have your time. I know how busy you are. And I think that your story, I think that the company's perspective on some of these topics is both unique and interesting and would be really valuable for a lot of our listeners. I know that you've been in the marketing space for quite a while. How did you wind up at Twisted X? Maybe that's a great place for us to start.
Yeah, you're right. I have been in the industry for a long time, both client side, agency side, kind of bouncing back and forth. Funny enough, I got connected with Twisted X through a recruiter. I was actually sitting on my back patio and just enjoying myself and got a call. And the recruiter asked me if I was familiar with the brand. And at the time I wasn't. And communicated that it was a brand and they were on a heavy growth trajectory looking for a brand builder. And as I had those conversations with the recruiter, I made it real clear. I was like, number one, I don't have footwear experience. And he was like, yep, we know. I said, number two, I don't have Western experience. And he was like, yep, we know. And in fact, that's why they were looking for someone outside of the industry that was a brand builder. And the process went fast. It was conversation to interview to offer in probably 48 hours. It was quick. It was fast. But that's how Twisted rolls. We go fast.
What attracted you? I mean, so you said it yourself, like no footwear experience, kind of a new space, a new thing. Beyond your desire to maybe do something different, were there parts about this business that you felt were just special or different?
Yeah, it was both scary and exciting. And I mean scary, not that I couldn't do the job, but scary because there was no marketing. And when I say there was no marketing, I'm not kidding. There was a logo and maybe some billboard art and a couple of print ads. Like there was nothing. So that was daunting from the standpoint of when they were talking about brand building, literally everything for the brand. But then that was also thrilling for me because I love to build things and I get bored easy. So for me, I had a really big challenge. So I just thought it was cool. And I thought, gosh, boots and, cowboy boots and footwear is just fun. I had never been in that space. So I was like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, it's a big, highly competitive market. But it's interesting because in the last episode that we just did recently, we also spoke to a market leader in their space, but they're operating very much in a niche. They do small home appliances, but like they are the market leaders in like tiny refrigerators, for instance.
Yep.
And so what seems to be happening is these really big markets like footwear, have developed niche markets below it. Right, over time. I mean, beyond things like sports and athletics, which have been around forever, I was sort of fascinated at Twisted X in how you've put together a whole catalog of products that really seems to cater to all these different needs, but all under this umbrella of modern themes like sustainability. And I kind of find that fascinating. I read that Prasad Reddy, who I believe is the founder, right, and the CEO.
He's CEO, not founder.
Okay. But I did read a story about him, and he read a book, right, 10 plus years ago, and was moved by this book. It was about, I'm going to probably not call it by the right name, but there's this massive heap of trash in the ocean. And I was fascinated. I said, what an interesting story and reason to. I think if you can combine really important elements like sustainability, environmentalism, if you can do good and you can create profits, that's a pretty special combination. And I don't think a lot of companies do that well.
You're right. So Prasad had read a book, and it was talking about the garbage patch, and it disturbed him that he as a human being, he believes that we should leave the earth a better place than when we arrived, and that's part of the mission. And for us, it goes beyond just sustainability. For us, it's about doing good in our community through philanthropy and the planet. But how we do it, we only do footwear. We do tons of categories. We have multiple brands, but we only do shoes. So how do we do good for the community and the earth through the products that we make and create? So for us, for Twisted X Global Brands, across all of the brands in the family, every single pair of footwear as of 2022 has at least one sustainability feature. So it's really important for us. That's a big piece of who we are.
The first description I found about the business was, to make the world's most comfortable footwear in the most sustainable way possible.
Yep.
That's a great goal. I think that's a lofty goal. And it's really interesting to me how passionate, some consumers can be about some of these issues. And I think they really do, not so much like our parents' generation and our parents' parents, but the new consumers of today, I think very much, if they have an option between, buying those boots from a company that is not doing anything to help the environment or causes they care about versus working with a company that does, they're going to choose the latter every time. So
Sure.
I just think it's really good. And to me, I love doing good things and also generating value at the same time. That's a great thing. I read about the Cook Children's Collection.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Can you tell me about that? I was really, really fascinated by this as well.
Oh, yes. The Cook Children's Project collection was personally and professionally just so it was so heartwarming. So Twisted X connected with Cook Children's Medical Center, where we brought together 4 of their patients. We do not call them patients, by the way. They are artists. So we brought together 4 artists, and they designed a pair of shoes. Each of them uniquely designed their own pair of shoes. When we originally embarked on the project, the intent was that we would probably take 1, maybe 2 into production. However, when we went into design day, where my team went down to the medical center and hands-on with the kids, our chief design officer, Tuan Lei, and our CEO, Prasad Reddy, were working hands-on with each of the 4 artists. They had all kinds of supplies. They had paper, they had uppers, they had markers and pencils and paint, and each of them kind of approached their design and how they created their footwear very uniquely and very differently. And at the end of the day, each of the 4 designs were so unique and so good that we actually decided to take all 4 of them into production. So we launched the collection in January at the medical center, where we had a press event for the kids, and we had, media, all kinds of media outlets were there doing interviews with the kids, and it was only about the kids that day. And the collection is being sold nationwide. at tons and tons of different retailers, and 100% of the proceeds go toward the medical center. And it's just amazing, actually. Honestly, it's truly amazing.
What ages were the kids, the designers?
6 to 15.
Wow. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a dream for them to participate in something like that.
Yeah, and it's really so we had design day and then we had reveal day. So design day is where the kids designed, and reveal day was when we revealed the actual produced footwear to them. It's so cool because the actual design that they created was almost close to identical, like as close as we could get it from their design to the shoes. There were no modifications on our side. We literally took it from their design to the shoes. And to see their faces and for them to, to be able to say that they're a Twisted X shoe designer, it was so cool.
That is really cool. And I know when I go to your website, it's the first collection that's presented to me. And I thought, this is amazing. This is like one of the coolest things that I've seen a company do. Where did the idea come from?
So Prasad, my CEO, he is a very, very kind, humble, giving human being. Philanthropy is one of our pillars. It's core to what we do. We are always working within the community. And for him and Tuan Lei, our chief design officer, they've worked together for so many years. And that was their dream. Their dream was to create footwear with kids. And they had been trying to figure out a way to do it. And Prasad was at an event where he was introduced to one of the Cook Children Medical Center's board members. And voila, boom, it was like email the next day. And then we were at the medical center within days from that, planning and basically mapping it out.
I mean, it takes not only, the like kind of the willingness and the fortitude, but there's real cost. I mean, there's resources that go into, obviously, right, launching a new product, putting it into production, getting it out into consumers' hands. And I think the companies, should really be applauded for that level of investment in changing the lives of these kids. I think that's pretty special.
And the cool thing is, all along the way, we worked with all of from suppliers to factory to transportation, supply chain, retailers, like our reps, like everybody along the way decided to give. So this was truly like we are doing everything we can to have as many dollars go towards the medical center as we possibly can. It's really cool.
It's almost like Twisted X sells shoes on the side to really fund its altruistic endeavors of making the world a better place, right?
It's really true. Like Prasad says all the time, he's like, yeah, we've got to sell shoes to do the really important stuff in the world. And we do that we make really cool shoes.
And even beyond this, the company was, I read, 100% carbon neutral by 2020. So that includes your HQ, your factories, your distribution, everything, down to, soy-based ink and recycled paper for your catalogs, right, or other materials like that. And then I was reading about the Zero X collection, and I'm like, this is like everywhere you turn, there's a business, but the business, is really about, like you said, touching as many people in a positive way as possible.
It's true.
That's pretty neat. I think if anything was going to draw you out of the agency space and into a new world, this seems like it.
Because at Twisted X Global Brands, we have multiple brands in the family. We do so many releases during the year because we have so many brands. And then we have so many initiatives and collections. And so it is part of our DNA where every 6 months we will come out with a new technology, a new innovation. And on top of that, then there's collections and partnerships and licensing agreements. And I mean, we go fast, and it's all about trying to do things that will make a difference in the world.
Yeah. And I think that's a good kind of segue into, the consumer experience for Twisted X, right? You spend a lot of time building a company culture that you can believe in and that is making a difference. And I guess clearly part of the rationale behind that is, you believe most people are good, want good things, and want to work with companies that feel that way too. So, getting that consumer experience right is probably really important, I would think.
It's very important. And interestingly enough, another pillar for Twisted X of how we're different and how we work and we run, we are not direct to consumer, which we are one of, not the only, but one of the very, very teeny few that are not direct to consumer. And that is a deliberate decision that we do not want to compete with our retailers. So this whole notion of, our job as the brand is to help with the awareness, the education for our end consumers on our owned properties, but also work with our plethora of retailers to help support them so they can sell. Because when they sell, when they win, we win, period. So we really want them to win. So we work with them on anything and everything from social graphics to building out e-coms, like whatever they might need, we pitch in and help.
Was it always like that, or is that part of what you brought with you when you kind of looked at the business? So that's been part of the culture from the beginning.
That's part of the culture from the beginning. And we found like a really interesting tipping point and a big decision for us was during COVID, right? When COVID hit, it was like the world shut down. Everybody that wasn't that didn't have an e-com presence was going e-com. And we made the big decision to still stay, with the model that we had. And during that time, we dug in deep and hard to help our retailers. So, but that's a belief again of our CEO Prasad, that he wants to do good and do right. And he believes that if we were to be direct to consumer, that we would compete with our retailers. And we want our retailers to succeed. So we do everything to support them.
You already know your success relies on your Amazon sales growth, and that means beating counterfeiters and illicit sellers to the buy box. But do you have all the tools you need to do so effectively? IP Secure offers seller intelligence to understand and root out unauthorized sellers and push them out of the buy box through simple enforcement actions that actually work, meaning customers will only see your legitimate products and shop from your authorized sellers. Learn how at ipsecure.com.
It's interesting because he's taken parts of two different strategies and pulled them together. And on one hand said, we're going to have a distributed go-to-market strategy so we can get our products in as many hands, as many shelves, as many consumers' feet as possible. However, we kind of want the control and the quality of consumer experience that really a direct-to-consumer environment is kind of considered possible. So it's interesting that as a business, you've chosen your go-to-market strategy, but you said, look, we can't just do that like everybody else. We need to bring these elements to it in force so that we get the benefit of the distributed model, but we keep our brand message on target and we keep our consumer experience as elevated and as fantastic as possible.
That's right. And that is the strategy. I will say that, our storytelling and the stories that we have to tell are broad and robust. The one thing that we don't lack stories. We have so many stories that for the challenge for me is it's the prioritization of the stories because, it's collection after collection, technology after technology, and we're doing so much that it is about, you're right, it's about getting the vast amount of content and storytelling told appropriately. And we tell our stories differently to our different brands and categories too. I'll give you a small example of that. When we talk about sustainability, and we don't use the word sustainability when we talk to our Western our Western audience, because sustainability is like like it's a term. They're like, oh my God, I don't even want to talk about that. But
Right.
that demographic, they live the earth, they work the earth, they generationally, that's how their families have lived. So for us, we came up with the whole notion of love of the land. And when we talk to our Western audience, we talk about the land and the importance of their job for the land, versus when we're talking about like the non-Western retailers and audiences, I'll just say kind of like more mainstream, higher fashion shopping experiences. You can say the word sustainability because it's a word that is part of the vocabulary that's acceptable. So we have different ways that we talk to our audiences and our retailers, because some of them care about sustainability as a word and a phrase, and some care about philanthropy, and some care about that we're not direct to consumer. So we have a lot of messages and we cater them and tailor them appropriately.
Yeah. You need to know your audience.
Oh yeah.
When you've got a diverse set of products for different demographics. So that makes a lot of sense. And, as you know, I mean, the show is about many things. And brand awareness is a really important part of we think what makes companies successful, especially in the e-commerce space. And marketplaces, whether it's Amazon or some other marketplace, are sort of interesting, right? Because they're these platforms that could deliver millions of customers. They, in some ways, are the virtual window into your brand because, for instance, 61% of all product searches online start on Amazon. So even if I may buy from a brick and mortar because I prefer that, or some other, or maybe direct from your website, which is pretty common, I'll probably go to Amazon first because I know it's going to have the cheapest price. I want to see what that is. I want to check out the brand. So, I mean, how important are marketplaces for you, you think, in terms of maintaining that consumer experience that's so important?
They're key for us. Like each of the, it doesn't matter to me where the end consumer purchases, as long as they purchase our product, right? To me, so, and as best as we can to try to make the experience be the best experience for that end consumer. Not that I don't care where they go to get it, but I don't, because basically if they're going to get it from any of our retailers, that makes me super happy. But yeah, you talk specifically about Amazon. We're very, very careful. Our retailers, we treat them very, very carefully. We ensure that we've got consistent pricing, that one is not discounting outside of the rules and regulations and timeframes, and we're very, very careful that everyone has that it's fair, no matter where that end consumer is shopping. But those marketplaces, absolutely, those are important for us because that's where the consumer is, and we have different retailers that play in different spaces.
I mean, I think for you need to think about all of it, of course, and Amazon and marketplaces are sort of one facet of that. But I'll tell you, as time goes on, and marketplaces like Amazon become more dominant, a lot of the brands that we work with that were traditional brick and mortar companies growing up are finding that, they really do need to think about Amazon and other marketplaces almost like extensions of your website, to the extent that that's possible, right? I mean, I don't think you could ever have as much control on Amazon as you do of your own site, but just knowing, when you think about the consumer experience the way that it is today, that those two places are somewhat indistinguishable for that consumer. And so I think in some ways, the relationship you have with your retailers is a way of doing brand protection. It is brand protection.
And brand protection is extraordinarily important to me, obviously. And yeah, there are rules and there are regulations, and that, yes, we're strict with that, but we're strict with that because we value the brand and we value the experience of the brand for the end consumer. And by default, if you have brand protection and you're giving the experience to the end consumer, your retailer wins, period.
Right, exactly. I think you can take that sort of fairly strict approach, right, to what you would like to see happen, primarily because you have such a good relationship with your partners and your retailers. And it sounds like you're giving them a lot of tools as well and support. So you're not just saying to them, here's the policy, go follow it. What you're saying is, look, we have a policy because the goal is to get you as much sales and as many new customers as possible. And we're going to support you in being sort of compliant with our approach. That's the difference, because I think most brands, they don't anticipate the level of involvement that's required. And if they did do that, they'd probably do a lot less hand slapping and a whole lot more hugging, right? If that makes sense.
We have, pretty much all of our assets, from product photography to lifestyle to anything in between, social, digital, hero images, whatever. We have that all available to our retailers. We've got basically, the whole content platform for them. But yeah, that's a really big deal because we want them to look like us. We don't want it to look, we want, no matter where that end consumer touches us, that it looks the same. And you know what? Honestly, there's always work to be done there. There always is, because, we move fast too, so it's a bit for the retailers to kind of keep up with us too, because we have so much happening. But
well, and as you get bigger and more well known, there will be, sort of third parties that try to take advantage of that, which is just part of being successful.
Yeah. And, I mentioned kind of the COVID timeframe. During that time, we created all of those assets for social and digital, all assets for those retailers that we continue to populate and still offer to them now, because we found it to be a great resource for them during that time. And it continues to be something that they desire and want, which is, we will deliver against that.
Wow, it's quite honestly, I think it's a retailer's dream to get in your program. I think one of the questions I was going to ask is it difficult, as a retailer to become a partner with TwistedX?
That I'll say that kind of lives over on the sales side.
Sure.
And there are requirements to be a TwistedX account, which I can't tell you what they are.
Sure. Yeah, I guess my point is, like, to me, when you think about, again, just cultivating the consumer experience you want and the brand you want, it's not only what they're selling, but it's who's selling it, right? Because I could buy your product from a retailer, but if my experience isn't great or my delivery isn't great or whatever it might be, that's something we want to prevent. And so who is selling it is probably as important as what they're selling.
Yeah, and that's been a focus of TwistedX Global Brands, is distribution, an expansion of distribution. Because I'll say, it's one of those that the brand itself, so TwistedX and TwistedX Work, which are our primary brands, those two have grown organically, exponentially since I arrived at TwistedX 3.5 years ago. And, it's a matter of the demand is there. So, and we're finding that, like, season over season, that's consistent trend for us. We've had growth, year growth, since my CEO, Prasad, arrived. So, and
That's incredible.
He pivoted out of bankruptcy in like 6 months, and then year over year. I mean, he really is a very brilliant businessman.
Wow. It's a great story. I mean, it's like I kind of feel like the company came out of nowhere and now all of a sudden you're everywhere. And that's pretty cool.
Hey, that's what we want. I'm like, yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, it's a good story and it's a great product. People love it. I was just kind of looking it up and looking at reviews of people, talking about the product, and you really seem to know your audience, like from your website to your messaging to the way that you position the product. And you're not selling basketball sneakers here, right? With these massive sort of addressable markets. You are targeting a fairly specific group of people who need this type of footwear or want this kind of footwear. You seem to just know what they're thinking.
We try. That was a really big goal. I mean, that's, a marketer's, I guess, that's what you should do. When I arrived there, like I said, there was nothing. There was next to nothing. And me and my team have spent a great deal of effort and time honing in on each of the brands and our audiences. And when we talk about Twisted X versus Blackstar versus licensed brand Wrangler footwear, right? You've got to get in the mindset of, when we're talking about Blackstar, it's a totally different conversation than we're talking about Twisted X. It's a different demographic, it's a different goal. And we try very, very, very hard to get in the mindset of the brand that we're working on at that moment, because they're different and they have different growth, efforts, and they have different marketing efforts. And so that's a big deal for us.
Yeah. It's been what feels like a long journey in a fairly short period of time, right? I mean, the company has been around, I think, 10 years. Is that right?
So founded in 2005.
Okay.
And then Prasad CEO came on board 2009. And that's really when everything completely, it just pivoted and changed. And then, the exponential growth.
Sure. So going forward, what do you think the future looks like for Twisted X?
A lot of it is, we're not going to stop innovating. We're not going to stop collaborating. We're not going to stop making shoes. It's more, we always have, in kind of, next and future line releases, we've got new stuff queuing up all the time.
But you're always going to stay true to footwear. You don't think you'll venture outside of footwear?
No. Footwear is what we do. And it's funny, like, people ask that question to Prasad all the time. And he's like, nope, we're going to do what we know. He's like, I don't know other things. I know footwear. So we stay core to footwear. And then we just expand within kind of our footwear, like, area of focus through licensing and collections and technologies. And there's plenty of places to grow, plenty of places.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a really well-run company. I think I agree with that philosophy of, staying true to what you do well, and knowing, part of, I think, planning out a great future is sort of looking at where you've been and where you've come from and how you've gotten to where you are, and not losing sight of that, I think, is really important. And it sounds like that's a big part of the DNA, of the business. It's really exciting. So, I don't want to keep you forever, Tricia, because I feel like I could talk to you forever about this stuff. This has been really, really great. I mean, I think it's an exciting company. I think that you clearly have developed an approach to interacting with your customers that really resonates. And whether you're doing that on your website, in a brick and mortar store, on Amazon, wherever you're doing that, the discipline, I think, that you all are bringing to the market is going to really help the business continue to grow quite quickly. And so I'm excited to see where Twisted X goes, and hopefully in the future you'll kind of come back periodically and update us on what's going on.
Oh, I'd love to come back. This is so fun. I love having convos about, growth, and it's just cool. It's fun. And it's fun to be at, a brand that's doing cool stuff, because gosh, it just makes my job even more exciting.
Great. Well, thanks for being here, Tricia. We really appreciate it. And we'll hope to talk to you soon. I'm Dave Cooper. This is Owning the Buy Box. You can find us on Google, Spotify, Amazon, everywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Now, if you want to reach out to Tricia, I'm not going to volunteer her contact information, but I know you can definitely find her on LinkedIn. Is a great place. And I'm sure she wouldn't mind hearing from anybody that has any questions or thoughts. Or you could always go to TwistedX's website and check it out. It's very cool. It's a great company, and I highly recommend everybody take a look at their approach because it's one that works. Thanks, Tricia.
Thanks, Dave.
You've been listening to Owning the Buy Box, a show from IP Secure. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes that you love. That helps us keep delivering you the tools you need to sharpen your competitive edge and ensure your authorized sellers always own the buy box. We'll see you next time.